Alright, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fallen Flags of America. In today's episode, as probably is extremely obvious by this locomotive, we will be covering the Clinchfield Railroad. So, let's just do a recap of the picture that we've got here in front of us. We are looking at the legendary. Excuse me, guys. Goodness. We are looking at probably one of the most legendary F units of all time, the Clinchfield 800. It was built originally in 1940 something as a F3A for the Clinchfield Railroad. It served on the Clinchfield Railroad for many years before being one of only, I think, there were four F units that made it to the CSX years. It kept its Clinchfield number 800 into the Seaboard system years when Clinchfield was merged into the Seaboard system, and then its successor, the Family Line system. Well, actually, I have that backwards: Family Line system, and then the Seaboard system. It was renumbered, I believe, to CSX 118, if I remember right, when it was the CSX OCS unit. Well, it was one of their OCS units. It was in their OCS unit set before they acquired the F40PHs from Amtrak. CSX retired the unit, and I believe they restored it to its built condition, or as close as they could get to brand new condition. And sometime during its Seaboard years, it was rebuilt as an F7AU. Now, what that means is that the F stands for freight, the 7 stands for the model designation, the A stands for it is a cab unit. For those who don't know, there are two types of F units. There's an A unit, which has the cab, and there's a B unit, which does not have the cab, B standing for booster unit. EMD did the exact same approach with E units, such as an E8A or an E7B. Let's just say. So let me go see if I can find some pictures of it here. Now, I don't know if you guys can spot it, but somewhere in this picture, it's in this picture. This is when the L&N had a power shortage back in 1971 to 1972. It even ran around for a little bit as a C&O unit, if I can find it. Let's just see here. Clinchfield 800. X that out because I don't need it. So this is coming from the most reliable source on locomotives. If you want to learn history on a locomotive, typically this is the best place to go, rnrpicturearchives.net. That's what I use, and it's very reliable. So, Clinchfield 800 was built in December of 1948 as an F3A, excuse me. I don't know why I want to say F7. It kept its number as Clinchfield 800. Actually, no, it did not. It was renumbered as Seaboard 116 during its Seaboard years, which would have been in the 1980s. As you can see, it ran around in a... I honestly think I was not really... Well, that's not really a good picture. I honestly was not a big fan of the gray paint scheme, but honestly, it doesn't look half bad on the Clinchfield 800, which at this point is Seaboard 116. It even got to run a NRHS excursion in 1983, along with two, I think, Southern units. If there's a picture of it here. No, that's not it. But here's a picture of it on pulling a NRHS excursion. Here it is in freight service. I just think this is a very interesting picture. So, let's see here. What else we got? It ran all over the place on the Clinchfield and Seaboard system. It ran Marion, North Carolina, I believe that's on home track. Irwin, Tennessee, home track. Uh, Reelif, North Carolina, I want to say that's home track. You guys can sound off in the comments if I get any of this wrong, because I have a feeling I will. It even got to run a Super Bowl special, which I did not know the Seaboard did, but seeing as it was in New Orleans, I'm not too surprised because a lot of things happen in New Orleans. So yeah, like I was saying, at some point or another, it was restored as it was painted up as a C&O F3A, being renumbered to Chesapeake and Ohio 8016. Now it ran around in this paint scheme for a little bit, but it was thankfully repainted back to its Clinchfield paint. So it became CSX 116 coincidentally. It ran around in a few paint schemes on CSX. It started out in 1980 running in, I guess at that time, what was the concept scheme for YN2, which didn't become a thing till the 90s. A few years later, 1986, it was repainted to CSX Stealth Gray. If I can find it. So here it is in what I refer to as blue stealth. For those who don't know, there are two types of stealth. There was the all-out gray, which was just called stealth, and then there was blue stealth, which was the stealth gray with a little bit of blue added to it, either on the frame or the nose or the roof, or really just anywhere they could get it. So here it. Okay, apparently Potomac Eagle owned it. That's a very nice photo taken in Tampa. So it ran around, and gosh, it ran around in stealth for quite a bit before it was repainted. So here it is with another interesting pair. I would assume this was a excursion of some kind. I'm not sure what it was, but here it is paired with two Mark F9 PHAs, numbers 83 and 82. Well, you can also see 84 right there. At least I believe that's what that is. So I'm getting off topic here. My point is that Clinchfield 800 is a very good unit. I can say I have seen this locomotive in person when I attended the C&O 2716 Heritage Highball last year. I got to see the 800 in person, and I was very thankful for that experience. So when it was under South Branch Valley Railroad ownership of Romney, West Virginia, it was painted as a C&O F unit, but thankfully it did not say in that paint scheme. So we can see here's some of their locomotives. They have there's Clinchfield 800, at this point C&O 8016, another B&O GP9, and then a GP38-3, which I'm curious on what it was. Okay, all it says is it's ex-Southern, but still, I digress. So it was at some point it was sold off to the Vintage Locomotive Corp, which in 2017 it was restored to its original condition and original paint, being repainted as Clinchfield 800 by CSX at Jacksonville, I think. It also ran alongside another Clinchfield locomotive, Clinchfield 2024, to my knowledge, the only preserved SD45 of the Clinchfield. They ran together, I think, on the Santa train in 2017, which is a tradition CSX has been doing since goodness knows when. But anyway, that's the story on this locomotive, and I think I have it in here somewhere. I must go look. I remember getting a picture of this locomotive, and I think it is in here. Well, anyway, I seem to not have it or misplaced it, so I will definitely show that again in a different video if I find it. But anyway, so the Clinchfield Railroad, which in my opinion is one of the most underappreciated railroads of, I guess you would say, class 3s, although I don't know, maybe a class 2. Anyway, the Clinchfield Railroad was an operating and holding company for the Carolina, Clinchfield, and Ohio Railway, or CCO. The line ran from the coal fields of Virginia and Elkhorn City, Kentucky, which is on the very eastern tip of Kentucky, way out on the eastern tip, to the textile mills of South Carolina. The 35-mile segment from Dante, Virginia to Elkhorn City, Kentucky, opening up the coal lands north of the Sandy Ridge Mountains, forming a connection with the Chesapeake and Ohio Railway at Elkhorn City, which was completed in 1915. The Clinchfield was the last Class 1 railroad built in the U.S. east of the Rocky Mountains. The 266-mile railroad provided access to numerous scenic wonders of the Appalachian region and was probably best known for the state-of-the-art railroad engineering techniques applied in its construction, as exemplified by the Clinchfield loops climbing the Blue Ridge Mountains north of Marion, North Carolina. Very close, might I add, to the Southern Railway's Saluda loops, or at least it's what I call them. The Clinchfield Railroad began operating the line December 1st, 1924, and for many years it was leased jointly by the Atlantic Coastline Railroad, which later became the Seaboard Coastline when the Atlantic Coastline and the Seaboard Airline Railroads merged together, and the Louisville and Nashville Railroad. When the L&M merged with the SAL successor, the Seaboard Coastline Railroad, effective in January 1st, 1983, it created the short-lived Seaboard System Railroad. The separate operating company was unnecessary and was merged into the Seaboard. The line is now owned and operated by CSX as their Blue Ridge subdivision, running from Spartansville to Irwin, Tennessee, and the Kingsport subdivision, Irwin, Tennessee, to Elkhorn City, Kentucky. At the end of 1925, the railroad operated 309 miles of road and 467 miles of track. Mileages in 1970 were 312 and 501. So here we're just going to go through the history on it because it does go quite in depth on it. The conceptual beginnings of the Clinchfield Railroad predates the railroad era, leading back to the period of westward movement after the Revolutionary War, where turnpikes and other ground transportation rules were considered. Discussions related to a transportation route from the Ohio River to the South Atlantic was during a convention held at Estelville, Virginia in 1831. The Estel plan closely resembles the route followed by much of the Clinchfield construction. The Charleston, Cincinnati, and Chicago Railroad, 1886 to 1893. 1886, ex-Union General John T. Wilder received a charter for the Charleston, Cincinnati, and Chicago Railroad, commonly referred to as the Triple C Railroad. This was the beginning of the modern Clinchfield. The promoters proposed a 625-mile line from Ironton, Ohio to Charleston, South Carolina, with an extension down the Ohio River to Cincinnati, Ohio. It would serve the rich agricultural lands of the Piedmont, the summer resorts of the North Carolina mountains, the rich timber and mineral deposits and coal fields of West Virginia and Kentucky, with terminals on both the Ohio River and the Atlantic seacoast, with an estimated cost of $21 million. That's not counting today's inflation. Johnstown, Tennessee was to be established as the headquarters for the Triple C and a division point. Wilder succeeded in financing the project, which included support from the London-based firm of Barling Brothers. Interesting. Construction progressed with three different locations from both terminating points in the middle. The middle section, built north and south from Johnson City tracks, reached Irwin, Tennessee in 1890 and was grading from 90% complete from Johnson City to Dante, Virginia. Financial issues were reported early as the third quarter of 1889, where it was reported the contractors were not being paid on time. As early as December 1890, financial issues started to impact the railroad with the failure of the Barker Brothers and Company of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, that had been handling bonds for the railroad. By 1893, the Triple C financial problems were so bad that the failure of the Barling Brothers of London, England, and the national panic of 1893. So essentially, what happened is that everything really hit the fan in 1893, and the railroad had to quit construction because their finances were crippled. The Ohio River and Charleston Railroad, 1893 through 1902. On July 17, 1893, the assets of the Triple C, held by the Barling Brothers, were sold at foreclosure for $550,000 to Charles E. Heller. This included the 171 completed and operational miles between Camden, South Carolina, and Marion, North Carolina, 20 completed and operational miles between Chosta and Johnson City, Tennessee, 60 miles completed but not yet operational, and 85 miles between Johnson City and Dante, Virginia, that was still under construction. The new owners renamed the railroad the Ohio and Charleston Railroad. The construction continued half-heartedly, and in 1897, owners sold the entire Camden to Marion segment to the South Carolina and Georgia Railroad. The last segment to be sold from Junction City to Boomford, North Carolina, to George L. Carter in 1902. The South Carolina and Western Railway, 1902 to 1908. At the time, an enterprising entrepreneur, George Lafayette Carter, was involved in operating the coal fields of southwestern Virginia and needed a railroad to transport his coal to the seaport. In 1902, he purchased the Ohio and Charleston Railroad, renamed it the South and Western Railway. Intentionally, it appeared that the railroad construction would continue using the original construction standards of the previous railroad, but new construction standards were developed that the Clinchfield would ultimately be built. In 1905, M.L. Caples became general manager and chief engineer. He proposed that the railroad would be hauling heavy cargo, coal, through mountainous terrain that should be built to higher standards that would provide the accelerated schedules and lower maintenance and operational costs. On January 1, 1907, general offices were moved from Bristol to the Wilder Building at the Carnegie section of Johnson City, Tennessee. The Carolina, Clinchfield, and Ohio Railroad, 1908 to 1983. The charter was granted and the railroad was renamed the Carolina, Clinchfield, and Ohio on March 31, 1908. Excuse me. The line from Dante, Virginia to Johnson City, Tennessee, was completed in early February 1909, and the line was completed into Spartanburg, South Carolina, with its first train with Mr. Carter on board, arriving October 29, 1909. Mr. Carter's plans to create the offices, yard, and facilities did not come to fruition, reportedly due to the high cost pushed by the landowners. The idea was abandoned, and instead land was purchased in Irwin, Tennessee, and operations were located there. A station was built in 1910 near Little Switzerland, North Carolina, for visitors to the resort. The resort built the Storchy Pass Road, a 4-mile-long toll road connecting to it. The tolls were lifted, and the road is now North Carolina Highway 226A. Toll booths are still visible. The station's original name was Mount Mitchell Station, but was subsequently changed to Little Switzerland. In 1954, the railroad retired its last steam locomotive in favor of diesel power. Family lines and CSX. The Clinchfield lost its identity in the mid-1970s when it came under the Family Line System banner, a marketing name for the Seaboard Coastline, L&N, and several smaller railroads. The Clinchfield was remembered for its famous Santa Claus special that debuted in 1943 for encouragement from several Kingsport businessmen and ran the length of the Clinchfield's main line between Elkhorn City, Kentucky and Kingsport, Tennessee, handing out gifts to the children along the route. Today it is operated by CSX Transportation with the Kingsport Area Chamber of Commerce and is now known as simply the Santa Train. Freight schedules. Most of their traffic was coal trains, but Clinchfield did operate a few scheduled freight trains. Northbound Clinchfield trains had odd numbers and southbound had even numbers. Most railroads used even numbers for northbound trains. This was done so that their trains would mesh in with connecting trains from the seaboard coastline at the south end of Spartanburg and the C&O at the north end of Elkhorn City. Below is a sample of the freight trains between Spartanburg, South Carolina, and Erwin, Tennessee. 93, Spartanburg, 9:30 to Mosaic, 10:25 a.m., Erwin, 2:30 p.m. Type, freight. Class, second class. Frequency, daily. 97, Spartanburg, 2:20 p.m., Bozak, 3:05 p.m., Erwin, 6:50 p.m. Time, freight, class, second, daily. Notes, known as Florida Perishable. 95, Spartanburg, 10 o'clock p.m. Bozaic, 11:15 p.m., Erwin, 4 o'clock a.m. Type, time, freight, second class, second, daily, frequency. 19, Marion, 1 o'clock p.m., Spruce Pine, 3 o'clock p.m., Erwin, 5:30 p.m. Type, local freight, class, fourth, frequency, exclusively on Sundays. Well then. Train number 7, Spartanburg, 10:30 a.m., Mosaic Yard, 12:30 p.m. Type, shifter, class, fourth, frequency exclusively on Sundays. Southbound trains and schedules. Train number 6, Mosaic Yard, 2 o'clock p.m., Spartanburg, 5 o'clock p.m. Type, shifter, class, fourth, exclusively on Sundays. Or at least, if anyone knows what the EXSUN stands for, please let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear it, or love to know. Train number 18, Erwin, Tennessee, 7:15 a.m., Marion, 12:15 p.m. Type, local freight, class, fourth, EXSUN. Train 22, Erwin, 11 o'clock a.m., Mosaic, 4:30 p.m., Spartanburg, 6:30 p.m. Type, local freight, class, fourth, daily, regularly scheduled coal. Train 26, Erwin, 11 o'clock p.m., Mosaic, 4:30, Spartanburg, 6:30. Type, through freight. Class, fourth class. Frequency, daily. 92, Erwin, 8:30 a.m., Mosaic, 12:15 p.m., Spartanburg, 1:15 p.m. Type, freight. Class, second. Frequency, daily. And train 94, Erwin, 8 o'clock p.m., Mosaic, 10:20 p.m., Spartanburg, 11:50 p.m. Type, freight, class, second, frequency, daily. Well, that is all I have for you guys on the Clinchfield Railroad. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to let me know down in the comments, as it always ensures that you are supporting the video. If you'd like to hear more or like me to do another video about the Clinchfield, please let me know down in the comments down below. But until we meet again somewhere out there in the high iron, this is the L&M Productions out.